The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Could we get the roll call, please?
Chairperson Boschert,
Here.
Vice Chair McConnell,
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Present.
Commissioner Calling,
Here.
Commissioner Tomacek,
Present.
Commissioner Mayo,
Here.
Commissioner Zhang,
Present.
Commissioner Torres,
Present.
thank you.
So it looks like we are missing Commissioner Dunn. Is that correct, Jennifer?
That is correct.
In that case, we have a quorum, and it looks like the first alternative Commissioner Zhang will be voting tonight. I need a motion to approve the meeting minutes for August 25th.
Chairman Boschert, I will make a motion to approve those meeting minutes. This is Tracy.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Tomacek. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Sounds like we had everyone in affirmative, so the minutes are passed. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, comments were accepted electronically via voicemail and were delivered to the Planning Commission and posted to the public agenda packet online prior to the meeting. Those who wish to give comments and signed up in advance per the online guidelines will be called upon in order to speak during the live meeting. The only item on tonight's agenda is item 3A, public hearing and approval of a preliminary development plan amendment for Mission Hill Silo Commercial Subdivision. Mr. Ashman, or excuse me, Ms. Ashman, would you like to make your presentation?
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Westminster Planning Commission. Again, my name is Stephanie Ashman. I'm a senior planner with the city's planning division. I will be presenting to you this evening the Fifth Amended Preliminary Development Plan, which I will refer to as PDP from here on out, for Mission Hills Silo Commercial Subdivision. The property owner is requesting a recommendation of approval to the Fifth Amended PDP for the expansion and clarification of the list of proposed uses for lots 6A, 5R, and 2. Next slide, please. So the property is a traditional retail commercial subdivision located on the northwest corner of West 88th Avenue and Wadsworth Parkway, as you see here on the vicinity map. The property is generally surrounded by other commercial land uses. To the east is the Brook Hill Commercial Subdivision with major retail anchors such as Home Depot, Bed Bath & Beyond. To the north is Silo Business Park. To the south is Stanley Lake Shops. And finally, to the west of the property are single-family homes and townhomes. Next slide, please. As part of bringing this project before you, a staff agenda memo has been created and tonight's public hearing has been properly noticed. The agenda memo, its associated attachments, tonight's PowerPoint presentation, and the public notices mailed, posted, and published in the Westminster window are hereby entered into the public record at this time. It should be noted that there were some typographical errors on the agenda memo regarding the notification dates. The notice was published in the Westminster window on September 10th. The agenda memo stated it was posted on the 9th. Additionally, the neighborhood notice of public hearing was mailed on the 8th, and the agenda memo stated it was mailed on the 9th. These errors were only typographical in nature, and the publication notification requirements still meet the statutory requirements identified within Section 11513A of the Westminster Municipal Code. So as you can see on here on this slide, you'll see there's the pictures of the signs posted, the affidavit of publication with the correct dates, and the mail notice from the applicant. Next slide, please. I will now introduce the standards for reviewing PDPs. Section 11514 of the Westminster Municipal Code contains 10 standards that are to be the basis of evaluation and approval for PDP amendments. Staff finds that the PDP application generally meets these standards, as outlined in the agenda memo. The first 4 standards are that the PDP is in conformance with the applicable codes, follows appropriate planning principles, identifies any exceptions sought, and that the PDP is compatible with surrounding development. By way of example, the proposed amendment is in conformance with the Retail Commercial Comprehensive Land Use designation. The singular exception being sought from the code is to remove the 30% tap room area maximum entirely from the brewery definition identified within Section 1121 of the code. This request is based on the commercial location of the proposed neighborhood brewery use, that the site is currently overparked for all of the existing and proposed uses by 130 spaces. Therefore, a maximum on the tap room is not necessary. So basically, there's a lot of parking out there. Next slide, please. Standards 5 through 7 ensure that the parking does not adversely affect and is not adversely affected by surrounding development, and that travel to and from the intended project site is safely established. Specifically in relation to criteria number 5, staff finds that the proposed amendment should have negligible impact on the existing and future land uses. The proposed list of uses is contextually appropriate. In addition to the proposed new uses, staff has placed additional performance standards of approval to provide the city with increased oversight at time of business license application. Next slide, please. The final three standards ensure that the project may meet any land dedications that may be needed to facilitate its development, that a corresponding ODP will be able to meet the standards of the PDP and ODP's official development plan, and that the applicant does not have any outstanding obligations to the city. Highlighting criteria number 9, the proposed amendment does not change the existing performance standards established within the original PDP approved in 1983 or any amendments thereto. Next slide, please. Staff recommends holding a public hearing to review the proposed PDP amendment and that the Planning Commission recommend approval to City Council based on the finding that this application meets all the standards set forth in Section 11.514 of the Westminster Municipal Code. Next slide, please. Staff believes that this proposed PDP amendment, if approved, will facilitate the city's strategic plan goal of creating a vibrant, engaged, and inclusive community by allowing new uses within a commercial center that promote a sense of place, with easy access to shopping and employment opportunities. The amendment will also support the city goal of fostering a dynamic and diverse economy by supporting a member of the business community in their efforts to increase their occupancy rates and provide the city with sales tax revenue while maintaining the site's commercial character. The applicant is with us tonight and has a presentation to share with you as well. So if we can queue up the applicant's presentation, and Sam, if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Sam Brown. I'm one of the owners of, it's commonly known as Mission Commons Shopping Center. And the previous slides identified the location and the configuration. Next slide, please. So it pretty much explains where we're located. It's about 131,000 square feet, the entire center. The major inline tenants are Planet Fitness, Big Five Sporting Goods, America's Best, eyeglasses. American Freight was formerly Sears, and they got rid of that name. CD's Wings and Marco's Pizza. Now the major pads are not all owned by us, but include Chase Bank, Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts, and Corona's Mexican Grill. And so the reason for our trying to amend the ODP is that this is a 35-year-old or older development, and the original uses, permitted uses, and non-permitted uses have varied dramatically through the years, and it's not unusual that people couldn't see 35 years ahead as to what the needs of the neighborhood might be. So our effort is trying to update and revise the uses so that it's in language that's understandable and that puts us in a competitive position to modernize and have flexibility to get tenants in the center. I might say that my kids and I acquired this property about 10 years ago in disrepair. It needed new roofs, HVAC. This may be on the next slide, I'm not sure. Next slide, please. Asphalt needed work, had a high vacancy at the time, and I should say that currently it's 17% vacant. And this area is very, very competitive on Wadsworth, as you probably know, for retail space. And I think we're not the only center that has a vacancy rate pre-pandemic of about 2 to 3 times the average vacancy rate in Metro Denver. So it certainly takes efforts. So we've made significant improvements to attract new tenants. Now, the proposed revisions to development plan rephrase or include the previous inclusions of uses and non-uses. Probably the changes that you might see are, it discusses brew pub, neighborhood brewery, veterinarian office was not very clear, but this includes indoor animal boarding and overnight stays after operations, and assembly uses, which can include educational, religious, banquet halls, and conference centers. Next slide, please. So this is the north, this is the larger building on the back part of the site you saw. The major tenant there is Planet Fitness, and fortunately they survived the pandemic, unlike most of the health clubs. And there's been a health club in this location for 35 years. You see Baskin Robbins, that's a new tenant, and they're doing quite well. Next slide, please. This is the middle part of the large building. Big Five is a major tenant. Next slide, please. In the middle of the building also, you see on the right, American Freight, which was Sears, America's Best. They're in the middle of the center, the larger. Then on the west end, next slide, please. The west end is the building where the proposed neighborhood brewery is to be located. Next slide, please. The current tenants are Marco's Pizza, and the trees in front of Great Clips, and then Brown and Associates and my American Pickleball Association. Anyway, the proposed site or location, if next slide, please, will show that. Well, I don't know if you want me to talk about any of these other entries under 11.5.14. I think you got them all there. Is there one more slide that shows the location? Well, if we could, yeah, there it is. Okay, you can see the arrows. So that's where the proposed new tenant would go. It's a neighborhood brewery. It's only going to be 4,310 square feet. There are limitations on expansion. It's not going to be a Budweiser or ever transferred to a company that could expand it beyond a certain limit, which is designated actually in their lease. It will be next to that. That Marco's is currently the #1 grossing Marco's franchisee in the United States. And so that's where we propose the addition. And I think as a small neighborhood brewery, it would be a nice addition to the community. Do you have questions I might answer?
Any questions from the commission? Doesn't look like there's any questions.
Okay, I'll unmute.
Mr. Mayo.
Yeah, I've got one if it's not too late. It's probably for Stephanie. On the assembly uses, would that overwhelm the parking? I know you said there's lots of parking, but other places that I've seen that had assembly uses, when it's actually in use, it tends to overflow the parking to the street and whatnot. I don't know the size of the facility for that, how many people it could potentially hold.
Yeah, I can get into that for you. So typically when uses come in, it is done through a business license. And the parking regulations for assembly uses are based on like number of seating, interior sort of stuff. And so we would know at that time what that parking demand will be for that specific use. When taking a look at this, what we wanted to make sure that we did is that we put a cap on, this is a performance standard essentially identified within the PDP, that we put a cap on the assembly uses as far as they shall be allowed, but they can only be limited to 20% of the total area or total building area for lots 6A, 5R, and 2. And no more than 2 assemblies shall be allowed within this PDP. So we did some performance measures to try, or standards to try and mitigate that. We did feel comfortable with the fact that the site is 130 spaces over what the code requirement is for a commercial center. And, that is, a substantial number. So through our review, we had anticipated with the additional performance standards and the site being parked the way it is, that we were comfortable with the addition of an assembly use.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and it looks like Commissioner Carpenter also has a question.
You might need to unmute
Your
yourself.
mic is off.
You can hear me better when my mic is on, can't you? All right. So a question for the applicant. So I saw in your presentation you came to the city asking for these new uses. When you came to the city, did you also come to the city to remove gun shops from your allowed uses in PDP? Is that or how did that come about?
I can't remember. I think gun shops were it would always have been prohibited. Oh, it was added. I'm told that was added under the prohibitions. Yeah, the city added that as a prohibition.
Did the city add that as a condition of you coming to us to request your other things tonight?
Well, I don't know if it was a condition. We went back and forth on the old uses, the new uses. So I don't know. It ended up in that, and that didn't bother us.
Okay. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Does it, as the property owners, are you comfortable with adding that restriction?
Yeah, I don't see that as a problem.
Okay, great. And
this is Adrian. If you were wondering if we had a gun use, a gun shop, I don't know, is that really your question? Were we trying to get a gun shop in there? So we gave a concession?
No, the Amendment 5 which is the one under consideration tonight, removes a potential gun shop use. And my question was whether the applicant brought this to the table, or if the city asked them to remove that use as a condition for coming to us, or for coming to us in city council for approval. It sounds like the city added it and the applicant doesn't know that answer, but I will ask Stephanie if she can shed some light on why this use was added by staff or disallowed by staff.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So the comprehensive plan within the retail commercial land use designation identifies gun shop as a potentially prohibited use. So properties and their uses need to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. And so I saw that on there and said, should go ahead and add that to it, just so that if that use does come in the future, that you can provide clarity on what that requirement is. Had that use not been listed in the PDP under prohibited uses, if they were to come in with a gun shop in the future, we would have to just defer back to the comprehensive plan as the listing of the use under the potentially prohibited. Potentially prohibited uses, we take a look at context. We take a look at, where something like that would be located, and we make a decision based on that. It is a general sort of use that's prohibited in a lot of retail areas within our city. Does that answer your question?
It does. I do find it that a little troubling that the staff would add a potentially prohibited use and say, well, let's just make it a prohibited use. So I don't, it seems like, I know it's would be an extra step for them, but I don't think we should be in the habit of adding prohibited uses to these, or creating potentially something that's potentially prohibited and just telling the applicant, well, just add that in as a prohibited use and then it's out of the way. I think that's a problem there for our Second Amendment rights. That said, because the applicant is okay with adding that restriction, then I'm not going to push this any further at this point. But thank you for letting me ask the question, because I was very, very interested when I read the agenda memo. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carpenter. And it looks like Planner John McConnell would like to speak.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Planning Commission members, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. I on the topic of the gun shop, and I'm sorry I tried to jump in a little sooner and I just couldn't figure out how to make it work, and I apologize about that. Just to elaborate on what Ms. Ashman said, in the comprehensive plan, there are allowed uses, limited uses, and potentially prohibited uses. There are criteria that go along with that. So I didn't want you to be under the impression that staff took that deliberation very lightly. Under potentially prohibited uses, they're described as uses that may or may not be permitted, depending on their proximity to residential, public, or quasi-public uses. We were trying to be sensitive to the adjacent neighborhood. There's a school nearby, and so we really analyzed the context of this. And so again, sorry for the late comment. I was trying to get in there and I couldn't.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions? Richard.
Yeah, one last comment with that, not to beat a dead horse, but that sporting goods store there sells guns, so they're not totally restricting them out of that shopping center.
Yeah, that's a good point. What we look at when we look at, permitted uses or land uses, you've probably heard us speak to what is a primary use and what is an accessory use. So the sporting goods store is obviously a sporting goods store. Its primary use is the sale of various types of sporting goods. And in some cases, like this one, the sporting goods stores can carry firearms, but they're not a firearms store as their primary use. And I'm not the author of the comprehensive plan, but in the administration of it, it calls out gun sales as a separate use. So if it's a primary use, we would relate it back to the potentially prohibited nature of the gun sales. We would not equate that with a sporting goods store.
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Carpenter, did you wish to speak?
Well, since I hit the button, just to be clear then, John, should we ban it then if we already have, I know it's an accessory use, but should we worry that if we ban this, then we're going to cut into the existing sporting goods store's business? If so, then why don't we just remove it now and not have to worry about, or remove it from the prohibited uses now, and then we don't have to worry about a potential change of use out from under them if somebody else has a different interpretation than what you do right now.
I guess that's a valid concern. I guess I would try to reassure you that I'm not sure any zoning official would look at it that way. Not that we're all 100% consistent in the way we review and analyze zoning ordinances, but you know, when something is specifically called out as a primary use, it's hard to equate that with an accessory use on a different primary use, if that makes sense. I mean, I appreciate the concern. I hopefully I can maybe put your mind at ease that wouldn't be a problem in the future. You know, we are updating our comprehensive plan, and we'll probably be having more discussions about the content of that plan and how it's changing and how it might be staying the same. You know, if that's a concern of the Planning Commission, we'd be happy to discuss that further, I guess, in the update to the comprehensive plan. I think that would be a very appropriate discussion.
Okay, any other questions?
Hey, this is a question.
Commissioner Jean.
I have a question for staff. Given the memo that was sent to the commissioners, just to clarify, for the Westminster Municipal Code, Part 7, it states, my understanding of staff is still will wait until the license proposal is taken care of to assess traffic impacts, correct?
So if I'm getting your question accurately, so our transportation engineer is not with us tonight, but he did prepare me with a statement in relation to that. Essentially, though, when we do get a business license in, we take a look to see what that use is and what the parking impacts will be on that center, and if the center was designed from a site plan perspective to accommodate for it. The transportation engineer supports the PDP amendment for allowable and prohibited uses on this site. And the property is adjacent to and has access points to Regional Arterial Wadsworth Parkway, Major Arterial 88th Avenue, and Collector 90th Avenue. And these roadways have the ability to accept an increase in trips generated by new uses on the site. In addition, the proposed use trip generations will fall within what was evaluated originally for the overall site, and no additional public improvements to the adjacent roadways would be required of this property due to the amendment. So when evaluating it, you know, taking a look, okay, what's being added is, you know, appropriate contextually that the adjacent roadways would be able to handle it. We would look at those sort of things as they just fit in with what's been already approved out there. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that answers my question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I have a question, probably more for staff than for the applicants. On the list of prohibited uses are massage parlors and social gaming outlets. How is a massage parlor different than a massage therapy outlet?
Well, how we have viewed massage parlors in the past versus massage therapy is that the massage parlor has it's called the SOB, the sexually oriented business aspect of it. And so that's something that we have to differentiate between when we're taking a look at the profession of massage therapy versus that.
Okay. And then on the social gaming outlet portion of it, would that prohibit the brewery from having game nights and trivia nights and things like that?
No, when we take a look at social gaming, it's in relation to like the kind of like it will encompass like the bingo establishment, which is included on this list as well, or maybe like a place where you can go and like play cards, like and bet money and things like that. It's trying to prevent those sort of things from happening.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Okay, I have been told that there is no testimony in the form of emails or voicemails on this issue, and that no one has signed up to testify online, and therefore a public hearing is not necessary this evening. Jennifer, can you confirm that?
That is correct. There was no request via email to myself, to the planner, and there were no voicemails received for anyone wishing to speak during this hearing.
Very good. In that case, we will move to look at a motion on this item. Does anyone wish to make a motion on this agenda item? Commissioner Mayo.
Yeah, I don't really see a pre-canned one on our sheet, but I could make one up here. I recommend approval of the Fifth Amendment.
Okay.
I think I can get us there.
Very good.
Okay, recommend approval of the Fifth Amended Preliminary Development Plan for Mission Hill Silo Commercial Subdivision on the basis that the criteria found in section 11-5-14 of the Westminster Municipal Code have been met.
Very good. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner McConnell. Any discussion or comments on this motion? Seeing no discussion, I will call the question. Jennifer, do we use roll call for this?
Yes, we do. Chair Boschert,
In favor?
Chairperson Boschert is in favor. Vice Chair McConnell,
Yes, in favor.
Vice Chair McConnell is in favor. Commissioner Carpenter,
I'm in favor as well.
Commissioner Carpenter is in favor. Commissioner Colling,
I vote yes as well.
Commissioner Carpenter votes yes. Commissioner Tomacek,
I vote in favor.
Commissioner Tomacek votes in favor. Commissioner Mayo,
In favor?
Commissioner Mayo is in favor. Commissioner Zhang,
I vote in favor.
Commissioner Zhang is in favor.
It looks like it passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Any old business? Any new business? I would like to confirm that we're having a meeting on the 13th of October. Jennifer, can you confirm that?
I can confirm that there will be a meeting on October 13th.
Very good, thank you.
At 7 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, well, a well-run meeting as usual, and thank you, staff, for all of your help with this. And thank you, commissioners, for taking the time. I will now adjourn the meeting unless there's any questions. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank
Night.
you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.